Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. We are super excited to have you all with us. A little housekeeping tip, the session will be recorded, so you can visit it anytime you want on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. If you're facing any issues like difficulty loading the session, please click on the event link and refresh the page, and you should be good. Um, as a part of our Building Career series, today we have a prolific guest, Sheala Vast-Binder, with us. Sheila is a certified Salesforce instructor, St. Louis Salesforce Nonprofit Community Group co-leader. She is dedicated to making difference by preparing moms and dads for flexible Salesforce careers. And she recently got Marketing Cloud Instructor certification. So huge congratulations on your achievement, Sheila. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I love talking about Salesforce and what we're doing. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much again for joining. I'm glad to hear that, Sheila. So, could you please share your experience with Salesforce and your Salesforce journey overall?
Yeah. Oh, I would love to. Thank you for asking that. Um, so I actually come from a nonprofit management background. So I was in nonprofit management for eons. It feels like a very long time. And most of my experience was at the executive level. So lots of fundraising, staff development, program development, just a wide range of stuff. When you're a nonprofit, you wear lots of hats, you wear multiple hats. And about 3 years ago, I decided to move into the tech space. So when I first made the switch, I came over as an implementation project manager. I worked for a local startup company and really liked it. It was loads of fun. And I love it was integrations. So I really like integrations. That was a lot of fun for me. But I got laid off because of COVID. It was a startup, right? And so um, easy layoff. But when I started exploring what I missed about my nonprofit world, I missed making a social impact. Missed making a difference in the world. And so I went back to my network who had helped me get into tech. And I went back to them and asked them, how would you combine like nonprofit social kinds of stuff with technology? And Salesforce was what came up because Salesforce not only has a passion for making a difference in the world as a company, but nonprofits all over use it, right? And so I did not know that. I hadn't used Salesforce in the nonprofit space,
Okay.
but quickly found out that lots of nonprofits use it. And so that's what brought me into Salesforce was that desire to make a difference in people's lives, but do it through technology. So I'm a big technology for good fan. And I love what I'm doing right now. I actually get to empower other people. I'm a trainer for supermoms. And so I get to empower other people to move into Salesforce. And it's a load of fun.
Wow. Like taking a leap from nonprofit for so many years to tech must have been challenging, but I think you found your voice again to like going about making a difference in the world. So I can completely resonate. Like we at Affianza, we are also working with so many nonprofits, and tech for good is our motto. So I can completely resonate with you. For our audiences, please give Sheila a huge shout out and share where you are joining us from. You can also send in your messages and questions via comment section for Sheila, and she will be answering all your questions by the end of this live. So, Sheila, since today's session is based on nonprofit cloud certification and learning more about nonprofit cloud, I want to ask you what motivated you to lead Salesforce nonprofit community group?
Yeah. Well, when I made that switch over, my second certification, so after the admin cert, which is kind of a base certification, my second certification was the nonprofit cloud. And when I was studying for that, I realized that even though there's tons of documentation out there, some videos, I'm just not a video learner. Um, there wasn't a place to like connect with other people to learn it. Focus on Force doesn't offer it. There's just not a lot of resources for nonprofit cloud. And so I started my own study group, and that's how I got into that. And within like probably 6 months, Oh, someone else from St. Louis. That's fun. Within about 6 months, the nonprofit group here asked me if I would like to co-lead with them. And so I lead with 2 other people, and we meet quarterly virtually right now, and get to give back. It's a nice way to be able to give back to the local nonprofits. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. That's truly amazing and inspiring at the same time, Sheila. So that brings me to my first question. What exactly is Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud, and how can one leverage the benefits of Nonprofit Cloud to help the organizations?
Well, Nonprofit Cloud, if you don't know Salesforce, first of all, Salesforce is a platform to help you deal with your customer management. And so when I was a nonprofit, a lot of that was done through, let's say, Google Drive or Dropbox and Post-it notes and Word documents and email. And Salesforce lets you bring all of that together so that the different teams know what each other are doing. So when I would pull together information, let's say for government or foundation reports, I would have to go out to my team. I'd have stacks of paper because I'd have to go out, collect it all, manually sort through it all, figure out what to report on. Where Salesforce, by entering all that data into one place, makes it really easy to run reports and kind of analyze where you're at, both with your programs and your fund. So just kind of the whole picture. And the nonprofit cloud is built specifically for nonprofits. So it's
Yes.
basically on top of the platform. And it's been done, it's really fabulously created. It was an open source tool. And still really in many ways is an open source tool. And so people add on to it. And then when it's a big fit, then it becomes part of the cloud. So it's constantly growing, constantly developing, and it's targeted towards nonprofits.
Yes, exactly. And I completely agree. It brings everything together. You can integrate various applications and tools to make your work so easy and efficient that you can almost have a paperless office. Uh,
Yeah, it's true. And it lets
yeah.
the nonprofit give back time to their staff to actually do the services that they're called to, right? That they feel like they're there for, rather than always doing paperwork and crunching numbers and that kind of thing. So it's makes life a lot more efficient.
Yes, a lot. Um, so I think that was a really simplified way of explaining the concept. So that said, nonprofit cloud also plays a significant role in, like, for example, tailoring the needs of organizations and like helps in grant management and funding.
Yes.
So I also want to know, like, nonprofit success pack, which is NPSP, is the backbone and the very foundation of Salesforce nonprofit cloud. So could you please shed some light on the concept of NPSP and what it is and how is it related to nonprofit cloud?
Well, I think you said it well, is that it is kind of a package and it has all these different pieces, and the NPSP is kind of the foundation. It focuses really strongly on the fundraising aspect of a nonprofit. It lets you keep all of your accounts and your contacts in one place. If you're an organization that deals with families, it lets you monitor that, and kind of household accounts is what they call it. So it has a specific structure that's different than if you're working with businesses. Um, and one of my favorite things actually about it, and I'm probably jumping ahead on my slide, but because it's made for nonprofits, they've done all this pre-build that is perfect for like roll-up summaries for, they have built-in formulas for your fundraising people, and they have all kinds of great reports already pre-built, and reports and analytics. And so they've basically made it a lot easier for nonprofits to do the job, because Salesforce can be hard to implement, in the beginning. It takes consultants or someone to kind of come behind it. And so they've done it the best that they could, I think, to make as much pre-built as they possibly could. And then on top of that, they add, extra packages, right? The program management module, the case management module, they've got all these extra pieces that you can add on top of it, which is great.
Yes, I mean, I completely agree. Initially, Salesforce becomes a little difficult to understand, but once you get the hang of it, I think everything becomes very smooth.
Yeah.
I feel. So I also wanted to ask, I was reading about Nonprofit Cloud and I came across the Power of Us program. So I wanted to know how NPOs or nonprofits can take advantage of this program, and if you can just enlighten us about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I found the power of us, I was so impressed. I was like, oh my goodness. Basically, it's this whole community of people in the nonprofit realm who can support and share with one another. And on top of that, because of Salesforce's giving nature, the power of us, it's an application that nonprofits can apply and get 10 free Salesforce licenses and be able to basically start up Salesforce. I wouldn't say for free because it has to be implemented. And so
Yeah.
it does take someone who knows what they're doing to set it up. But once it's up, then the cost is really minimal to keep it running and to keep it going. And so Power of Us is broad, right? It is both the offering of these licenses, but it's also this whole community of nonprofits supporting each other. And Salesforce has a whole division focused on nonprofits. Their support of nonprofits is just astounding to me, how giving they are towards nonprofits. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, even I feel the same. Whenever I'm on Twitter or whenever I'm on Trailblazer community, people are always so much helpful and answering your questions. So in a way, it's amazing to be a part of this wonderful and giving community. So Salesforce
Yeah.
is, I mean, its impact is huge, I would say.
Yeah. And recently, I don't know if you're aware, but recently they brought Power of Us and actually Salesforce.org, which was their nonprofit arm, into the larger community, the Salesforce.com community. And
Okay.
so now nonprofits, not they have Power of Us and they have their own stuff, but they also can interact with all of the other people in the Salesforce space. So there's even more places to ask questions and build networks and and grow your community. So I really do like that they've kind of pulled it together and it's not like a standalone now. They've kind of wrapped it all up. Yeah.
Yes, so they are kind of establishing it in various domains and various regions, so which is really nice. Um, as you are leading Salesforce nonprofit community, I would want to know. I mean, our audiences, including myself, want to know about your role as a leader and what are the challenges you have faced along the way, and how did you overcome them?
There's always challenges in tech, especially that, in life, that's just kind of the way it goes. I think one of the hardest things when people move into this space is realizing that they're always going to be learning something new. There are always releases, there are always new updates, there's always something new coming down the pike. And so I love to learn. I mean, it's been a real gift to me to move into this space and be a learner. But if you struggle with that, you're going to have to learn to adjust, to kind of just open yourself to being a lifelong learner because you're going to be, there's no way around it. And in the nonprofit space, well, in any probably industry, you need not only the technology side, you have to understand the business side, the company side. And so I was fortunate because I already knew nonprofit. That's what took me into Salesforce, right? But if you're in Salesforce and looking at industry and you're interested in nonprofit, then you do have to also wrap your head around how nonprofits work and their whole language. So it's kind of like learning different languages, right? You have to learn a tech language and you have to learn an industry language. And in our case, that industry is nonprofit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I really agree with you. What you said, being a lifelong learner is something, irrespective of any field or wherever you are. If you want to be at the top of your game, you need to keep evolving and learning every day. And that's
You
what I
do.
really like about Salesforce. It keeps innovating, and there are so many releases throughout the year, and it's amazing. So when it comes to new releases, I want to know about Salesforce Spring 22 nonprofit cloud releases.
Yeah,
Um,
which just
so
came out, right?
it just
I
came out.
Yeah, I was actually, first of all, if you don't know about Trailhead, Trailhead is the gamified place to learn about Salesforce, right? And the spring release highlights came out, at least to my email yesterday. And so I, of course, jumped in and was looking at what's changing and what's new and what's fun. In the nonprofit realm, first of all, last summer, they introduced Marketing Cloud for nonprofits. And I
Yes.
also am certified to teach Marketing Cloud. So that was very exciting for me to see because I think there's so much power in the Marketing Cloud tool. So when they opened it up to nonprofits, because it's expensive, and so nonprofits, many of them cannot afford the higher cost. So they brought the cost down, simplified the platform for nonprofits, but are making it possible for nonprofits to use it. So that was very exciting for me last summer. And when I jumped in yesterday, looking to see, what else they've changed. First of all, they've added some Datarama reports to the
Yes.
Marketing Cloud. And if you're not familiar with Datarama, it's this huge analytical tool built into Salesforce. And typically it's an add-on expense, right? But now they're adding pieces of it, at least, into Marketing Cloud. So that was really cool. And then the other thing is they have added Einstein into the nonprofit cloud. And Einstein is Salesforce's AI tool.
Yes.
It is very, I mean, if you wanted to take a path and just follow one path, you could follow AI in Salesforce and have that be your career path, right? But they have added pieces of it into Nonprofit Cloud to make it easier for the fundraising team to do their job so that some of the things that they're doing is basically how likely is this donor to give, right? And how much is it possible this donor can give? Because as a nonprofit, it's really hard to know that. You'll have this whole list of people who they call them prospects in the nonprofit space, but people who might give, but knowing how much they might give or how likely they are to give, it can feel like a guessing game. So to have an AI helping you make some of those making recommendations so you can make those choices is pretty powerful. I'm really excited to see how that impacts the nonprofit space. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there are wonderful features that have been added, and it's really exciting because it's going to make the task even easier than before. So, like you said, we can track who is likely to give or who is likely to donate, and so many interesting features. So, you mentioned Marketing Cloud for Salesforce before, and I wanted to ask you how do you differentiate between a non-profit cloud and marketing cloud for Salesforce, like non-profit cloud? So, what is the differentiator?
You mean Marketing Cloud for basically like businesses versus Marketing Cloud for nonprofits?
No, so a Salesforce non-profit cloud and
Okay.
marketing cloud for non-profits.
I see. Um, you would need Salesforce for nonprofits would be like your basic platform for all of your teams, right? So Marketing Cloud for nonprofits would be more of an add-on. It would be something you would bring in specifically to help with your email and walking your customers through a really personalized journey as you're interacting with them. Marketing Cloud makes it possible for you to interact with people pre-sales all the way through, post engagement. So it's really something you'd bring in alongside your nonprofit cloud. Um, I guess a nonprofit could use it as a standalone without the nonprofit cloud, but then they'd be missing all the other pieces that nonprofit cloud brings to the table, right? The case management, the program management, and the grant management, and so it's hard for me to imagine. And I mean, you do consulting, so it'll be interesting to hear what you guys have to say about that. But it's hard for me to imagine a nonprofit bringing in just marketing cloud for nonprofits without the basic Salesforce platform called Nonprofit Cloud, right? So have you had people bring in just Marketing Cloud for nonprofits?
So, according to my understanding, I feel from what you said and from what I have read, the differentiator is Marketing Cloud for Nonprofit. Like you said, that you would be able to track the engagements, basically the AI part of it,
Mhm.
analytics part of it. So that is what the differentiator between Marketing Cloud would be. I feel that from my understanding. Um, I
Yeah,
think
it
that would
definitely
be
makes what it does is it makes you better able to communicate like almost in real time, like kind of on a day-to-day basis with people. And which is amazing. And the typical Salesforce platform, the nonprofit platform, does not enable that. You can send emails, you can do those kinds of things, but it's not the same kind of interaction as you get with Marketing
Yeah,
Cloud.
there'll be
Yeah.
customization with respect to Marketing Cloud.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, this brings me to my next question, which is how important it is to have a nonprofit cloud certification to be able to work with nonprofits. Um, does certification alone suffice, or do you need to have substantial amount of experience in the domain?
I think that varies from who you ask. Everyone probably has their own opinion on that, right? In my opinion, um, domain experience matters. When I moved into Salesforce and I was looking for work, one of the things that I had recruiters telling me was you would have a easier job with your first job. Now, after your first job, it gets, life gets much easier in Salesforce ecosystem. But for your first job, marrying your industry background, so your domain with your technology will get your foot in the door because it lets you niche down, right? It lets you specialize. And so that is the advice that I got, that domain experience matters. Does the certification matter? It depends on what you're wanting to do. Like if you're wanting to be, let's say, a nonprofit Salesforce admin, um, your admin certification is probably more important than your nonprofit cloud certification, right? Um, if you're wanting to be a nonprofit consultant and be able to share the various ways your particular nonprofit can customize Salesforce, then the nonprofit consultancy certification is ideal, right? Because that's when you get into change sets and sandboxes and development, and you get into use cases of, when would you use this tool over that tool. That's what that consultancy tool, that consultancy certification focuses on. So it really does depend on what you're wanting to do with the nonprofit. If you're wanting to just be an admin, I don't feel like you have to have the nonprofit consultancy certification. I would recommend you got the admin certification because you have to understand the basic platform of Salesforce
True.
more than anything. And then you would just jump into Trailhead and learn all the pieces, right? But that's my take on it. I think everyone has a different take.
Yes.
If you want to keep growing in your nonprofit field, let's say you get your admin, you become a system admin, you want to keep growing, maybe become a consultant or become like the lead IT person, then you might want that certification. But the certification alone, I don't think it'll get you in the door. You either have to have Salesforce platform experience, domain experience. I mean, you have to have something else that by itself will not get you in the door. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think hands-on experience or practical experience would weigh much more than just certification.
Yeah.
Uh,
Experience really does matter. Although I do think you have to be careful as if you're really new to the platform to not go out and volunteer at a nonprofit and like be like, I can build I can build your tool. I can manage that because you could end up really messing up a nonprofit's instance, their Salesforce platform. So if you're going to go out and get volunteer time, make sure you have someone with experience overseeing you, either a project manager or you need someone with experience guiding you. Don't I'm uncomfortable with people like jumping in as the solo person. trying to, especially now, I'm not saying like once the tool's built, but like to build it for somebody and to think that as a new person you could do that. Probably not, honestly. It's a hard build. It's not an easy implementation.
Correct. I think that really answers my question, and I think so many people must have had this question somewhere in their journey. So thank you for answering this with so much clarity. So lastly, I want to ask you, like, how can one get started on the journey to becoming a Salesforce certified nonprofit cloud consultant? I mean, so I would just want to give you my personal experience that I recently got admin certification, and now I'm planning on getting nonprofit cloud certification. I'm really enthusiastic about this domain. So how do one get started? Like, what's the next step?
Yeah. Well, I applaud you for making the first step, because that admin is key. It's very important, and it is a prereq. You can't get the nonprofit consultancy cert without the admin, just FYI. So that's definitely first step. But then jumping into that nonprofit cloud certification, Salesforce itself offers numerous tools. Most of them come out of Power of Us. They have videos, they have documentation. The documentation is amazing. I mean, it's dry, like all documentation. It's not much fun to read, but it is full of information and full of use case scenarios that you could then like take and make flashcards out of it so that you can quiz yourself off of it. I'm a big believer in flashcards, and I use Quizlet. If you're not familiar with that tool, it's an online flashcard tool. And but some people are paper, right? They want paper.
Yeah.
The reason I started my nonprofit study group was because I couldn't find an interactive place to learn, and that's what I require. I am a Focus on Force fan. I love Focus on Force and Mike Wheeler and Salesforce Ben and some of those platforms, but they don't have much for nonprofit cloud, if anything. And so that's why I started my group. And if you can find a team of people to study with, to bounce questions off of with each other, I think that's really helpful. I do open up my Slack group. There's recordings from our original discussions, list of questions that I partnered with 2 other people. And so we pulled questions from our exams, like that we remembered, and pulled them. And then we would discuss them as a team as far as the answers go. So there was no like, this is the answer. It was this is what research I did and what I found. I do open that up to people. It is you have to ask me for it. It's not a public Slack group.
Okay.
But if you ever want access to it, you just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I would be glad to add you. But it is hard to find tools. So the best tools that are just out there are on Salesforce itself, because they have the videos, they have the documentation, and that kind of thing. Yeah. Yes. I would love to see more people creating tools. It's so necessary if you are a hands-on learner, like I am. So.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I was actually going to ask the resources, but I think you have answered it very well. Salesforce and Trailblazer, and yes, to our audiences who wants to, get hands-on experience or wants to learn more about nonprofit cloud, please reach out to Sheila, and she can share her resources. And I'm definitely going to reach out to you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So thank you for such useful tips, Sheila. I mean, these can be practically implemented easily by everyone. Just doing one trailhead a day takes you a long way. So that's something which everybody can do. So
that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm going to jump on top of that, because what I would do is I would do a trailhead, and then any of the pieces of information that weren't sticking in my head, I would turn into a flashcard or into a Quizlet.
Wow.
And then you would have ongoing, resources to be able to learn off of. So that's kind of the way my brain works. I'm always, if I can't remember it, how can I make myself remember it? And flashcards work well for me. Yeah.
I think that's the fun and interesting way of learning something.
Yeah, and Quizlet, you can turn them into games, so it's not even
Yes,
just flashcards. It's a fun tool if you haven't found it.
I'm going to use these tools for my nonprofit cloud preparations for sure.
Well, maybe some of the people listening you could make a little group of your own, and you could have a
Yes,
study group.
yes, we
I
can.
like study groups.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I would like to introduce a little something about ourselves. So we are Affians, a registered Salesforce partner, and we work with some really noteworthy clients and organizations globally. We are always hiring and looking for new talents to join our ever expanding group. So you can send in your applications if you're interested via our website portal, or you can drop us an email at careers@affians.com. I think it's time for us to take in some questions from our audiences. So, our first question is okay. So, our first question is from Tenairi Hernandez. Is an admin certification a good place to start? I use Salesforce at my current position, but only entering data.
Yes, actually, and I think we kind of touched on that. So thank you for asking that. Um, you're an end user is what we refer to you as, which is great because it means that you have an idea in your head of what it feels like to use the Salesforce platform. But getting the admin certification will give you the basic understanding of what it is to be behind the scenes and to build out what as an end user you're seeing. And so getting that admin cert is required by Salesforce before you get the nonprofit consultancy certification, or really a large chunk of their certifications requires the admin. So that's a good first step. And then you'll have a better idea of where you want to go from there.
Yes. So, for going forward in Salesforce, I think administration is the prerequisite.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, a question from her. Hi, Sheila. I'm a mom and military spouse in Virginia. I went to school for social work, but would like to get a Salesforce cert.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was probably before the actual question. Definitely the admin is your first step. That's where you want to go. And in Salesforce, that'll just be your first step. I think a lot of our trainees, take a while to get their heads around that will be your first step, and then you'll have to decide what your next step is going to be. It could be the nonprofit consultancy like mine. The second one or the third one I was going to work on, but I got sidetracked, was the app builder because that helps you with the automations in the Salesforce platform. So admin is definitely, yeah, where you begin when you move into this space.
Okay. I hope that answers your questions, Tanairi.
You're welcome.
Okay. Our next question is from Raquel Perez Lopez. Wow, nice name. If 10 accounts are free for nonprofits, would 9 spots be staff members and the 10th position be for the admin? Thank you.
Yeah. That really varies just from organization to organization. Those licenses are basically user licenses. And so you can have one be for your system admin, one be for your CEO, one be for your, accounting manager. You can hand them out as you will. And then you can also set them up to have specific permissions so that they're only being able to see and access the material information that they specifically need. If you also are connecting to the Marketing Cloud, one of those licenses would be a Marketing Cloud user, an API user. Just FYI, you do have to have a Marketing Cloud API user.
Okay, so for each Salesforce nonprofit cloud user, there would be one certificate assigned to each of them.
Yeah, one license per user. Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
And you can buy, if you need more than 10, you're able to buy more. And Salesforce does give discounts for nonprofits. So it's not like you can't have more than 10. It's just your first 10 are free.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Okay, Alex Smith is asking, I recently got admin certification. How should I approach my career in Salesforce going forward?
That's a big question, and I actually do a whole webinar just on that question. And so, in like, a nutshell, you really have to ask yourself what skills it is that you enjoy using, what industry background that you might want to be, tapping into. Um, what you like to do and what you don't like to do. So like our trainees will come in and the admin basically does not mean you're going to have to be an admin. It's just the baseline foundation learning level in Salesforce. And then people shoot off all different directions. Some go the business analyst route, some go a project management route, some go a developer route, some go customer success. And so what I tell people is kind of like, look at what your background is, look at what your interests and your passions are. Salesforce has so much space in it that you can basically customize your career path and
Yes.
make it fit you, and find a space within the Salesforce arena. So Alex, that's a really big question, but yeah, you have to know yourself. You have to know what it is you like, what it is you don't like, and then how that matches. But almost anything can be matched in
Yeah.
Salesforce, has been my experience.
True, and you can also like transition from non-technical background to technical background, and it's limitless. You can do whatever you want, and depending upon your interests and skills.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
really, really is. And in the nonprofit arena, even, I mean, you can do project management or customer success or business analyst or architect. I mean, there's all kinds of roles. And so you might just have to stop. And I mean, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, and I can give you some more guidance. But there's all kinds of questions you can just ask yourself about what you like, and where you're wanting to head. And that will kind of direct what your next steps are.
yeah. I think Alex needs to do some sort of introspection as to what he wants to do. All
Yeah.
right. Um, So our next question is from John Carter. I have been working for Salesforce for about a year as an admin. How can I switch to the nonprofit side?
Um, Again, do you have a nonprofit background? Because if you don't, one of the things you probably want to do is get some. It can be, volunteering on a board, volunteering in a nonprofit's Salesforce platform. Since you have that experience, that would be a good way to kind of get your feet wet and see if it's something that you like. Especially if they use NPSP in the nonprofit cloud, you could start seeing what that cloud is all about, and how it differs, because it does differ. Lots of similarities, but there are differences as well. So I would kind of try to move into the nonprofit space on the side, if you will, just either as a volunteer or part-time work, just to see if you like it, because you might not. And so
Yeah,
kind of testing the waters is a good plan. And then after that, if you decide you do want to go for it, determining what kind of role you're wanting, again, determines what your next certifications are. Because if you want to be a developer, that looks very different than if you want to stay in the admin path, right? And so, or a consultancy path. And so, yeah, that's what I would do. How about you?
I think
Well,
even I feel like what I was actually going to ask. So, for example, now I've finished my admin certification, and I'm really keen on learning more about nonprofit cloud, and I want to really dabble into the space. So, I would first learn all about the certification and how it is. How can I able to gain as much experience as I can before taking the certification as well. And then of course I'll be like you said, working as a volunteer somewhere, and under the experience of a mentor, or I don't know, there's so much out there. So and then kind of step by step knowing, okay, this is something which I really want, and something I really like. So I think that's the good way of going about it.
yeah, and as we were talking, and I jumped the app builder, as I've already mentioned, and so it's funny that I would say this, but what I found when I was studying for my nonprofit consultancy certification is the app builder would have actually really helped me, because it does get into deployment and change sets and sandboxes and a bunch of the stuff. All the consultancy ones, they marry that industry, that domain experience with a bunch of more technical information. And the nonprofit consultancy does that as well. And it was hard for me. I'll just be honest. It was hard to think, not just as a nonprofit person, but as a technical person. And so getting the app builder actually might lay a good foundation for you even before you get to the nonprofit consultancy certification. I didn't do it myself. So I'm telling you something that I didn't do. But it was hard for me to get that certification without that. It took me a long time to get that knowledge, and I could have probably gotten an extra cert in the process.
Wow, that's wonderful. So Sheila, say for example, like we love this idea about tech for good, right? So is it like necessary that if you are a Salesforce developer, you can still be a nonprofit cloud consultant and you can take both those fields parallelly, joining, integrating technical and the nonprofit sector?
Oh, definitely. I mean, nonprofits need developers and architects just like
Yeah.
everybody else, right? And so, again, really any path that you could follow in the for-profit world, you can also follow in the nonprofit space. Um, and developers are hot. I mean, everybody needs more developers and more architects, and so that path is just as valuable in the nonprofit space. Now, it's probably not quite as lucrative. You might not make quite as much as you would in the for-profit realm, but it's probably not hugely different because the skills are so necessary. And and if you're like me, social impact matters so much to me. It probably, well, it does matter probably more than money, even though I know money, you need money to live. But social impact is a powerful motivator for me. So if that's true for you too, yeah, taking the developer path or the architect path or customer success, whatever really can be moved into this space.
Amazing. Yes, well, definitely. Thank you. So that's it for today. Sorry, we have one more question. Okay, so you don't have to be sorry. You can ask as many questions as you want. Can we get information on that webinar for what to do with your admin cert?
Okay, if a little bit more clarity could come in, that would be helpful. So what do you mean, what to do with it? Like what to study next or what job skills to head for?
I
A little bit more clarity would be helpful. Yeah.
I think the
I don't know.
webinar that you previously spoke about.
Oh, I do speak at Trailhead community groups and some of the dreaming events. And so I have done some of the things I've done have been around how to pass certifications because, that's a skill of its own. And also how to then basically find your specialty area. So if that's what she's meaning, to find your specialty area, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll have to find. I did that talk at Florida Dreaming in October, and I can see if they recorded it. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. So at the Nairi, you can reach out to Sheila for further information. Do we have any more questions? I don't think we do. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hosting such interesting lives for you all. So as we know that March is a month of International Women's, like the entire month is celebrated as International Women's Month. So this year's theme is Break the Bias. And keeping that in mind, we have invited some really amazing speakers to talk about diversity and inclusion, women in tech, women in Salesforce, um, on every Tuesday of March. So watch out this space. For more information and stay tuned by following us on all our social media platforms. And do not forget to follow Sheila for wonderful insights on all things Salesforce. Sheila, thank you so much for sharing all about Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud and for taking time on Friday evening to chat with us. It was such an enriching and enlightening chat and conversation. And I'm sure all our audiences and myself are going to take away a lot of valuable information home and extremely benefit from today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. And Sheila, once again, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And I'm so excited about your Women in Tech series because that's also a passion for me as a woman in
Yeah.
tech. So that's exciting. How fun.
Yes, we have really amazing speakers, and today, I mean, I'm really inspired by your Tech for Good initiative and your Salesforce community. The way you are leading. I mean, I'm inspired and amazed. So, thank you
Oh,
so much.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend to you too, and to all our audiences watching.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.